of Magic the Gathering. Yeah, that's right, folks. I've been learning stuff about Magic the Gathering, parrots, and porcupines all at once here for this video. I put in the work on this one.
I'm Nerdarchy Ted.
And I'm Nerdarchy Dave.
Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds. So what are we talking about today, Dave?
So today we want to delve into the world of Ikoria and Magic the Gathering. And we're gonna try and create some D&D monsters from that world.
All right, you got me, shocked for a moment there. I'm like, Magic the Gathering. We talk about Dungeons and Dragons here. How are we doing Ikoria? Magic the Gathering set. Ikoria has got some really awesome monsters, some really amazing art that's associated with it, and I'm really shocked that there isn't more kind of crossover between these two things.
Well, I mean, we do have two official campaign settings from Wizards of the Coast that are Magic the Gathering, and there's been like 5 plane shift. I guess they're done almost like UAs or additional content,
right?
Where it gave you information for playing a D&D game in these Magic the Gathering worlds, right? Now, I have to admit, I am not a Magic the Gathering player or particularly a fan of the game. I've just never been particularly interested in it. But my son has recently got into Magic the Gathering, and him, his girlfriend, and my wife were opening up packs of cards and going through like the stuff, and I'm looking at like some of these monsters, and they just like they're totally giving off that 1E, 2E vibe of the crazy wizard did it for the creatures. And so I was like, oh, these would be pretty cool to convert into monsters for Dungeons and Dragons. I will say some of them are very difficult in the sense that there's not a lot of information or lore outside of the actual image you have for creating these creatures as D&D monsters.
And that's part of the thing about Magic the Gathering is like, it is primarily a game that happens to have some art and mechanics that go along with it, and occasionally you get some lore or some side chatter or a quote that you can play around with. And some things, if you've got a really like popular or big card in the set, there could be more to it. But the things that are going to fall into like your commons and uncommons, like they're just like, all right, I don't really care about what this is. Make this cool art and do as you want with it. And then it becomes a creature and off you go. But for taking that and extrapolating that into D&D, you could either do some kind of magical explosion affected this forest, and these creatures have been warped and changed. You could do the 1E style of things of the crazy wizard made all these, bizarre monstrosities and off they go, or any combination thereof, and really play with some of these beautiful pieces of art and put them into easy stat blocks for D&D.
Yeah, or it's just the natural fauna for the world that you're using, right? There's tons of different things you can do. I will say there are novelizations for Magic the Gathering, but if you happen to be looking at something that doesn't fall within any of those novelizations, you're gonna kind of be left in the lurch as we are, because today, the first thing that I chose was the Porcuparrot. And I've learned way more about porcupines and parrots than I've ever known before.
So before we go any further, if you happen to like this video, videos like it, as well as all the awesome content over on nerdarchy.com, why not come check us out over on Patreon and throw us some support there.
Articles like mutating into the mythic ranks of MTG Arena. That's right, we have Magic the Gathering articles over on the website. Several of our writers over there enjoy playing the game. Robin Miller and Doug Vahovic both have a great love for Magic the Gathering. Ted is like an old head Magic the Gathering person, but hasn't touched his cards in a long time.
I haven't played in over a decade. I kind of ran screaming. My wallet, finally got to breathe and keep some money in it. But hey, I'm selling my cards and moving on. And meanwhile, my nephew is like, hey, we should play. And I'm like, no, I can't. You don't know the kind of personality I have. If I get back into it, I am doomed.
He's just like, one game, Ted, just one game. And Ted's like shaking and scratching. He's like, I can't do it, man. I can't have the cardboard crack no more, man.
It's rough, and I've moved on to plastic, and now it's dice and minis, and I can't have dice minis and Magic the Gathering cards. Yeah. It's too much.
So the Porcuparrot is illustrated by Chris Seaman, friend of the channel. We've had him on for live chats in the past. I generally stop in whenever I see his booth at conventions. He's got these cameo creeps, so these really cool pieces of art that he does with stories behind them that are, well, creepy. It's just like the name says. So with that, the Porcuparrot is a bird beast. We only have a picture. It's on a branch. I don't know if it's from a giant tree, a regular tree, a small tree. I don't even know how big a Porcuparrot is. It's fairly beefy as far as the card goes. It's got a defensive 4. I think it's a 3/4 with a defensive 4. But it is a parrot that has been mashed with a porcupine.
All right. Yeah, so that falls into the absolute realm of the crazy wizard did it,
Yeah.
or any other things that we kind of talked about. Now, in Magic the Gathering lore, you've got cards that do damage. Red is very much a aggressive and direct damage style, and this card is red. So therefore, I would assume the creature by itself is going to be aggressive. Parrots we know are intelligent. Porcupines we know are defensive, but can very much shake their quills and loose them upon things that get too close. So combining these two things into one creature is a bit crazy.
I think you just perpetuated as a myth and stereotype of the porcupine. They indeed cannot shoot their quills.
When I say launch, like they launch themselves. They're not firing these things. But there's nothing to say that the Porcuparrot couldn't. I mean, we're talking about D&D and whatnot, so why not?
That's true. And neither the parrot nor the porcupine are naturally or normally aggressive animals. But now these are drawing from red mana. It's literally the bully color of Magic the Gathering. Yeah, that's right, folks. I've been learning stuff about Magic the Gathering, parrots, and porcupines all at once here for this video. I put in the work on this one, and it was actually kind of fun. So I'm like, well, what is the biggest parrot out there? Because I mean, we're making a D&D monster, so I don't want to use a little one. I don't want to use a parakeet. I want to use the biggest parrot to combine with a porcupine.
Sure. So the Hyacinth Macaw is like 3 to 4 pounds, and it's a little over 3 foot tall. So that's not exactly large, weight wise. Whereas a porcupine, they can be almost the same length, but they're like 30 pounds. So in order to combine these things, you kind of have to have more mass of the parrot, to mash it together. But there's not saying that you couldn't be like, okay, well, we're creating for something that would be a 3/4 in Magic the Gathering, would have to be like as mighty as a bear, in my opinion, if not bigger, to really stand up to that kind of might. So I'm talking like something the size of a wolf or larger, or bear or larger, for something like this. And that becomes some kind of owlbear-esque monstrosity, and that's where I would start with a stat block. I'd work off of an owlbear and combine some porcupine abilities.
Yeah, I was kind of looking at that stuff a little bit. One of the things is our Porcuparrot does not fly, doesn't have the fly ability. It doesn't appear to have wings. It really looks like a parrot head kind of on the porcupine body, but with the coloring and plumage of a parrot, one of the more brightly colored ones. Like the Hyacinthia parrot is brightly colored, but it's brightly blue. So I took some liberties there. One of the cool things too that I learned is, a parrot they're about half as strong as an eagle when it comes to their bite strength. Which if you're like, well, half as strong as an eagle, that doesn't sound that impressive. Well, they can literally bite a broomstick in half. So, yeah, I think that would take a finger easily, right?
Indeed.
And that's like off of the small version, right? And if we're going to beef it up, make it bigger. And, it's in a tree, right? The one that we see. And porcupines can climb, swim, and they even burrow as well. So it's going to be super mobile, even if it isn't flying.
So I would definitely give this thing, a climb speed at the very least, with something like that. And perhaps they live in, dense jungles, that they can climb high into the trees, in these thick things. And maybe they're ambush predators.
There are two very important things we're going to have to figure out how to work into this. One is a group of porcupines. It's called a prickle. and a group of parrots is called a pandemonium. So we're gonna have to figure out how to work that in. And honestly, even though parrots generally eat fruits and nuts and stuff, they've also been known to eat meat as well. You can feed your parrot chicken. You just should cook it first.
And we do know that there are plenty of avians that eat meat, owls, hawks, eagles, and that kind of stuff. So perhaps the porcuparrot has gotten to its vast size because it has become a carnivore. It has become a predator, and it's ambush. If you sneak up on it, it's got its quills to defend you or to defend it, but it's got its large beak to kind of move in and attack with.
Yeah. So we're big fans of just kind of reskinning monsters here on the channel. And, I looked at a bunch of them, right? Frog God Games is third party, but you can find their giant porcupine on the SRD for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. So you can go over there and take a look at it, the website, not the official SRD. So you can go over there and look at that, and that was really beefy. It's like 65 hit points. Oh, I thought that was like a little bit more than I think I was looking for this. But like, there's different ways you can go into it. It's like, are they a bunch of small things that are like terrifying, like piranhas, right? In a group,
sure.
Individually, they're not a big deal, but a bunch of them could be very problematic. Are they small creatures that are problematic in a group because they'll swarm you? Are they medium creatures, which is still, it's the size of a person. Porcupine, the size of a person would be no joke. There's some really long quills. Oh, yeah. And even a parrot, right? A U-sized parrot could bite you in half, I think. So one of the things that I went and did is also I went through and looked at all the giant animals. And like the giant badger is the closest thing I thought for like a land creature that reminded me of a porcupine. Uh-huh. But then there's a bunch of birds, a giant owl, vulture, swan, eagle, are all things you could kind of look at if you want to reskin. I mean, I'm kind of notorious for like, if I want a monster to square off against my players that don't exist, I'll have 2 or 3 different monsters tabs open on my computer and I'll be like, I'm just using this part from here and this part from there. I don't even rewrite a new monster. I just kind of do it on the fly.
Yeah, see, if I'm doing that, I tend to, in advance, I'll cut those pieces together and I'll put it out and I'll add that into my campaign notes for that, or create like a monster, document, and I'll have that open, but I'll put it all together so that I've got one cohesive thing. I feel like, to me, that works better.
One of the things I've been doing lately, because I've been using the D&D Beyond Encounter Builder, is I will create a homebrew monster and you can copy another monster. Mm. So I'll take a monster and decide this is like my base.
Sure.
I'll copy that and then I start adding in, then I'll open up like homebrew versions of the other one just so I can get the mechanics right.
Sure.
And I'll just copy and paste those in until I'm like, okay, this is the monster that I'm using, because I'm going to just drop it in the Encounter Builder. Sure. But again, if you're using D&D Beyond, that's a thing you could do. Or like Ted said, is you could just put them in a document and have it ready to go.
So getting back into the actual, monster end of things, or creature end of things, if you're looking for something to kind of represent the porcupine aspect, we should look at things that have needles or quills. So there's the needle blight, the needle lord, or a spine devil. Each of these things have like those kind of quill-esque aspect that you could kind of like jimmy into, the creature that you're looking to do, if you don't want to whole cloth create something.
Yeah, so, and again, like, that's how we like to do our monsters, fast and dirty. We're not doing the full out, we're going to staff the Porcuparrot, but here are some things we would use if we wanted to use it in our games, right? Also, so, like, if you wanted to just use a monster from, pre-existing D&D monsters without using the owlbear, I thought the owlbear was a little bit beefier, because if you did this as an owlbear version, and you start adding the quills and spines to it, I think this would be a terrifying monster.
And that's the direction I'm going. You tell me a 3/4, sure, I'm here for it. Let's make it happen.
Yeah. But yeah, you could, if you wanted to do that, you could literally say, okay, owlbear stats, It's got a mammal that combines an avian. You just change the way it looks, and you can just
Slap on one of those quill abilities that I mentioned from the Blight, the Lord of the Devil.
slap on those quill abilities, and all of them too also have a ranged attack using their quills. In addition to, it's like if you stand next to them and try attacking it, you're going to take damage as well. So they're all factors. But if you're like, well, I don't think my Porcuparrot is quite that beefy, there's two other versions of a griffin that are a young griffin for a small creature and a medium creature. I think either one of those would work, where you could just take those and tack on the thorn abilities.
Absolutely. So if you're looking to add some other new creatures into your game, why not check out Secrets of the Vault Monster Menagerie Volume 1 in PDF. Game masters can never have enough creepy critters to put into our games. Inspired by our earliest days playing 5th edition, it's finally time for these creatures to become part of your world. Each new monster includes lore and tactics, plus new rules, ritual spells, and more. This document includes the creature template, the Aberrant, 9 new creatures including the Booze Ooze, new rules for intoxication, a new ritual, Create Mosshound.
So let us know what you think down in the comments below. And do you want us to talk about other Magic the Gathering monsters and how we can make them fast and dirty for your 5e game?
While you're down there, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Go ahead and click on that notification bell. You know the drill.
Quick reminder, we drop new videos Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, so come on back. But you can't wait till then? No worries, we've got you covered. Hey, remember that time we did a D&D 5e review of Zindrick for Magic the Gathering?
So until next time,
Stay nerdy.